Hi,
Yeah,
well,
hi everyone. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Melissa.
my name is Melissa Romano. I have Peter Polganese and Noel Smith here to present on solar after the tax credits have ended. Go ahead, Noel. You want to start?
Yeah, I'll just welcome everyone. We're Solarize Delco. We're a nonprofit dedicated to serving Delaware County and talk about solar. So yeah, let's go to the next slide and we'll do a better introduction of who we are, please.
Peter Puglianese, also board member of Solarize Delco. I think, Noel, you're going to kick this off tonight, correct?
Yeah,
Right,
we're going to
yeah.
do the slides, Peter.
Looking to move the slide, Peter.
You're not seeing the slide.
No,
I see it. I want you to move to the next one here.
Got it. Okay.
Thanks. Yeah. So my name is Noel, and with me tonight is Peter. We're the presenters. Melissa is the host, and we're all board members for Solarize Delco and part of the Haverford Township Environmental Advisory Committee. And yeah, let's go to the next slide. I'm going to introduce to you Solarize Delco. So we are a nonprofit. We're dedicated to Delaware County, Pennsylvania. We are a 501c3. We have all volunteers. There's no paid staff, but we're really here to help our neighbors. So there are folks in the county that have gone solar or are very knowledgeable about solar, and we're here to educate the community, give advice. We want folks to have a good experience if they decide to go solar. So we try to answer all the questions for you that you would have. We'll do an assessment, see if your house is a good fit, look at your bills, give advice, and really we want you to, before you go to installer, that you are going there as an educated consumer and know what you want. We've consulted with over 300 residential or commercial or nonprofit organizations. And I think we're approaching 100 installations across the county. We also have grants for low income. We could talk about that. So tax credits ended this year due to the latest bill in Congress. But I guess the question that we're asking and we're providing an answer for is that tax credit mean it's the end of solar? And I guess the narrative we want to focus on is the cost of energy in the United States. And this chart shows a pretty hefty increase over the last 4 years in electricity rates. If you look at 2020 to current, it's gone up well over 25%. And I'm sure you all see that in your PICO bills too. And let's talk about PICO a little bit. Let's go to the next slide. And we have an actual analysis of the PICO bills. And that's going up about over 50% since 2021. And there's a number of factors that drive that. We'll talk about that in a minute. But the point is, one of the economic factors and decisions that you have for solar is that the price of solar generally is been going down. Even without the tax credits involved, the return on that investment is still going to be robust and healthy. And we'll get into some numbers in a couple more slides. Yeah, let's go to the next slide. And I just want to call out the other, factor on this decision in the United States. We're having more power outages, and there's a couple of reasons for that. The storms are getting more powerful, more rain and wind, but also the infrastructure is aging and the maintenance has not been keeping up, which is also a factor for the driving costs because of the expense of maintaining the grid infrastructure, which is aging in place. Let's hit the next slide. Yep. So here's a couple points on why energy costs or electricity costs in particular are so high. Natural gas prices have been starting to rise. They are what kind of kept our electricity prices low for such a long time. Is when the fracking revolution happened in Pennsylvania, then natural gas producers kept driving the cost. I guess kind of keeping it flat for a while, but that's no longer the case. Natural gas prices are rising as the international markets come into play. And the infrastructure, as I mentioned, is aging, and that costs money from our utilities to keep those, current and working, which is important, but it costs money. And then, of course, extreme weather is affecting power plants and outages. And some new drivers. We have kind of a out of sync demand supply curve with, there was crypto mining that came in, and now there's a very large demand for data center expansion to support artificial intelligence. And so we're seeing a lot of new demand for electricity. So what you've seen to date and driving that, 50+% increase in PICO rates is not going to slow down. It's not going to stop, according to what we're seeing, that the drive for new energy is going to continue to drive that forward. And that's what makes solar really compelling from a cost perspective. Let's hit the next slide. The other thing is, if you're concerned about our environment and global warming, the emissions that come out of the grid are substantial, particularly your house and heating and cooling and other home energy use accounts for roughly 30% of or over 30% of your greenhouse gas emissions. And so this is something that you can also impact and lessen your own personal family environmental impact by getting solar panels installed on your home. Let's hit the next one. And so yeah, we talked about some of the benefits. Environmental impact, return on investment is there, very little risk. And I say that because you will buy electricity in the future. So investing in it now will pay off because you will be buying it. So yeah, there's good, it's like an inflation fighter. And we'll talk about some of the options in a few minutes about, how you can really fix your electricity rate by going solar. And that's an inflation fighter. And then there's a rebate from PICO as well. So even without the federal incentives that were in place in the past, it's still quite a compelling and economic argument to consider solar. Yep, there's little or no maintenance on solar panels. And, if you do put it on your home, studies have shown that it increases your value by at least the cost that you put on to install the panels. And then if you are interested in resiliency, if you think, hey, I might want to have a generator on my house, we could also talk about how a battery paired with solar is a really nice solution, because it's like a generator that you don't have to put energy into because it comes from the sun. So I'll turn it over to Peter to continue on.
Okay, so a little bit about the basics for anyone who isn't already familiar with solar. So the solar panels are able to directly convert solar radiation into electricity, DC electricity, and that's fed into inverters, and it's got filters and so forth for surge control. And then from there, it really goes into your house supply. And when, as usual, you're grid connected, if you are generating more than you're using, it's being fed into the grid, it's being metered. We'll talk about net metering. But then there are times, cloudy days, rainy days, like the last couple of days, where you're using electricity off of the grid, and at night you're always using electricity off of the grid. If you have a battery, some of the generation can go into the battery and then be used at different times of the day when your supply is not as great. So I mentioned net metering. So in most states and Pennsylvania, certainly, there is a system called net metering where basically you are trading power that you put into the grid and power that you get out of the grid on an annual basis. And so what we usually tell people is, unless you are just subject to power outages with the frequency and duration that are not tolerable, as opposed to every once in a while you might have an outage in a storm for an hour or 2 hours, you really don't need a battery. So the grid is your battery. And so sunny days, you don't have a lot of demand, you're putting power into the grid. Nighttime, cloudy, snowy, rainy days, you're taking power out of the grid. And it's basically traded at the same retail cost. Basically, if you look at your bill, it's the cost of the generation plus the distribution from the grid, the power network. That bill is divided into at least two components. And so that total, which used to be considerably lower, I remember when it was 12, 13 cents. Now it's up to, that total is about 20 cents. And just FYI, that is not necessarily the price to compare if you've shopped for like renewable energy from a different provider. That's only the generation charge, not the distribution charge. So here with net metering, you're trading even Steven, what you put into the grid, what you take out of the grid over a 1-year period. And PECO generally does a resolution in May, looking back over the entire prior year.
Can I make a quick comment, please? Peter, your diagram is really cool, but it's slightly incorrect in that power through the system that I have goes both places. If you're hardly using much power in the house to light a few lights, they're lit by the solar and at the same time going to the grid.
Yes, that's true. It's only the excess that's the net over generation that's going into the grid.
As opposed to the way
I have not really looked at that graphic very closely, but
okay,
that's over my capacity to build animation in PowerPoint. So the question that we try to answer for people is your home or business suitable for rooftop solar or other solar if you've got a lot of land, ground mount solar? And so generally what we're looking for is this image that just popped up is out of a publicly available website, Project Sunroof by Google, which you can look up your house, and it gives you some basic information, but pretty good information usually if your home is located in the area that's been analyzed by satellite imagery, which most, I would say probably 95 to 98% of the United States has been. So if your roof is largely unshaded and you have a south-facing roof or east-west facing roof, it's going to be pretty good. The other consideration is how old is your roof? So solar panels, generally, the thought is they're 30 years. I mean, the truth is they're going to last longer. There is a slight decline year on year of generation rate. But so do you want to put it on a 20-year-old roof? You can, but you have to know that the panels would have to come off in order to install a new roof. And there's cost associated with that. So we ask that question, new roof, what's the condition of the roof? And we do look at this publicly available imagery. And it will give a decent estimate of what the capacity to generate is and what the payback is. So how long? Typically 30 years. The warranties, so the panels, most of the panels today have a warranty that they're guaranteeing 86+% of the original rated capacity of the panel after 25 years. And there is a slight degradation of that rate really continuously due to exposure to the elements primarily. But after, they don't stop generating after 25 years, and they don't stop generating generally after 30 years. They'll keep going. The outputs will just be reduced. So we'll talk later about how we have, part of our thing is just, no pressure, your neighbors who have experience with solar talking you through the decision process. But the other part of it is we're trying to make it easier to do if you want to do. So we've vetted installers, and we have a couple of installers at any one time that we have agreements on for slightly below market pricing. So if you want to do it the easy way, we can do that, but they also have pretty good warranties on the panels, warranties on the installation. We often get asked about maintenance. Oftentimes, like, government agencies will ask, well, don't we need a maintenance contract? And indeed, a lot of them buy maintenance contracts. There is really not a lot of maintenance. Certainly on an angled roof, not a lot of maintenance. They clean themselves essentially. So you don't have to purchase maintenance contracts. What does it cost? What does it save? Well, so it's depending on the size of the system. So the average home is going to use 10,000 kilowatt hours a year. This is so an example, a home that uses 7,600 kilowatt hours a year, which, by the way, that data is on your bill. So one of the things we ask people, if we're going to help you, is, well, send us a PDF of your entire bill, because it shows the 1 year look back consumption. And so that answer, how much do you use in a year, is on your bill. So that translates in, instantaneous maximum capacity versus what it's generating over the course of the year. That works out to about 6.37 kilowatts. And so the cost up front, depending on pricing, is going to be in that 17,000 to 20,000 range. With us, most of ours are on the low end of that range, unless there's complexity. So that's another whole question, and that's part of the process of us helping people decide. Is we understand what the complexities are. We've been through a lot of installations, and so we can answer a lot of these questions. But so you're investing, but then you're netting out more than your more than 2 times your investment over that, let's say, 25 years. So one of the parameters that you'll see on that Project Sunroof website, and indeed on proposals that you will get from installers, is what's the payback, meaning simple payback. And it's been, when we started several years ago, 4 years ago, they tended to be a little bit higher paybacks, on the order of 12 years. Maybe a good one was 11 years. And they've actually walked down considerably because of those increases in PICO pricing. But now, after the end of this year, you are going to see the disappearance of the residential tax credit. And but if you go back to that slide that overlaid the PICO price increases, 55% over the last 3 years, essentially that loss of the 30% tax credit is not the disaster that everyone was worried about. It's kind of walking us back to maybe 2021, 2022 in terms of paybacks. And very likely to improve and improve and improve year on year, because we are going to be paying for the new capacity necessary to support all these data centers that are being built all over the country. The other thing, which historically we haven't been too excited about, leasing or power purchase agreements, and that is basically you're no money down. A company owns the panels, installs them on your roof. You have a legal agreement. and there's no money down, but you have to pay a lease payment, a monthly payment to the owner of those panels. Now, they have always been okay from the standpoint of if you have no capital and you really want solar, it's better than nothing. Now, the leasing company or the owning company that issues the PPA are really making the profit. And they're generally, historically, we're offering you a little bit of a discount off of PECO rates. Over the next year and a half or so, there's going to be a little bit of a unusual flip-flop because the leasing companies are commercial and they're still able to get the federal tax credits. And so the comparative economics are going to improve considerably for these power purchase or lease agreements. And so we haven't yet actually in our entire 4+ year history, we haven't really put a recommendation for a lease. Everyone that we've counseled decided to either pay for or get a loan to pay for the solar, and they own it themselves. So now I think with the economics, the agreement that we actually have sort of a generic agreement that we've looked at and vetted for one of our installers. And so the rates are going to be considerably lower than that 20 cents per kilowatt hour that we're basically at that point for PECO. And so the economics do look pretty good. And I think it's going to open it up to more people who really didn't feel like extending themselves by borrowing or had, investment funds that they, look at it as, well, this is a great alternative to the stock market, for example, which it is. Okay, so that is a little bit about the leasing, same roof considerations, not too old. The big consideration for leasing is what about sale of the house? And so there are provisions and there is a little bit of an obligation for the owner on the transfer of the house. So the solution we think is not different from owning if you're selling, which is you're bumping up the sale price of the house, reflecting the very, very low utility costs because there's solar on there. And I think the same thing could be done with a lease arrangement. Okay, low income folks. So we have been trying to lower the cost of entry for folks on middle and lower income. We actually have been offering for several years grants to reduce the purchase cost, and we have teamed with Community Action of Delaware County, who, by the way, if you're in that boat, fixed income, middle income, they also provide free energy assessments and free weatherization services. So if anyone who falls in that category should be looking at Community Action Agency of Delaware County, not just for what possible Solarized Delco grant for installing solar, but also for the free weatherization and energy assessment services. So if we, well, first of all, our process, we have assessed vendors, vetted them, and when we, and so we have these agreements with installers. When you come to us, we review your PECO bill, your current usage. Are there any things that you're planning to do, like maybe an electric car or putting in a heat pump to replace a natural gas heater that might affect your usage? And we look at you know, the available roof space and what you can get. And so we counsel you, basically, we're helping you understand and helping you decide, is this something that you want to do? And if you want a quote from our vetted installer, we will connect you with them and they will get you a quote. If you want to shop yourself, you know, we have really no skin in the game. We're not installers. We really just want to facilitate and get more people to implement solar. And so there are people who want to, you know, who can't help themselves. They want to get, like, you know, 3 bids or 5 bids, quotes from different vendors. That's fine. It all takes a lot of time. And it is, you know, who are they and are they trustworthy? You know, we don't get involved on that side of it. If you know, someone comes to us and they are convinced they want to do it and they want to shop, we tell them, knock yourself out. Okay. The installer will evaluate the structural adequacy of the roof. There are a few cases, older roofs, you know, generally newer homes that have been built in the last 20, 30 years to the relatively recent codes are going to be adequate for structurally for solar. Some older homes may not be adequate, and the structural assessment will tell you that, and will tell you, well, this could be cured by a little bit of framing and structural supports inside the attic. Now, there's some cost associated with that, and so if that happens, you're free to back out at no cost to you if you've come through us. That is often what happens, although sometimes people are intent on getting solar regardless. And it's like, well, $3,000, $4,000, or $5,000, that's a cost they're willing to bear. The installer gets all the permits. They do the grid connection interaction with PECO and get the PECO 2-way meter installed. They install, they schedule inspections, and they get approvals, and then it can be turned on. And so PECO is the last step where they approve activating the system. Now, there are cases where still, although the PECO grid situation has improved markedly over the last 5, 10 years, but they're still in the process of curing some weak zones in their grid where they can't support solar because they feel they can't take that much electricity going in the other direction, essentially. But that map is publicly available, and you could see if you're in that area. And then, you know, once you're all done and you turn it on, you're ready to go. You're generating electricity. The installation itself is usually pretty painless, sometimes as little as a day. There are 2 different types of control systems. This is an example output of the control system of the Solar Edge inverter system, which is, you know, so there are 2 basic types. If you have like full sun, zero obstruction, generally the string inverters do a very adequate job. And then there's another type of control system called microinverters, where each panel has its own little control, more sophisticated controls that are able to continue to maximize output, even though, you know, maybe half of the panels are shaded at a particular time of day. And the control system will give you data, you know, what's the output, what's the history, what's going in, what's going out. So a lot of people ask, well, gee, is it going to make a difference if I get solar? Well, this is out of that Google Project Sunroof system. Looking at the entire county, it says, well, 78% of the structures, the buildings in Delaware County are solar viable, meaning we can generate an awful lot of, we could replace the grid power for 78% of Delaware County. So it can be very impactful. I think for an individual house, it's, well, one step at a time. And for you as an individual, it's also, hey, I want to bring down my greenhouse gas carbon footprint. I want to do my part. I also want to reduce costs and make a really healthy return on investment while I'm doing it. So we assume that most people who want to do it are not necessarily into it for the economics, although that is a really compelling case. And that it's about trying to reduce the pace of climate change, which is unfortunately, plans were plans. We still have not achieved net reduction in year-on-year carbon emissions in the United States. And so there's still a tremendous amount to be done, and we're feeling the impacts already, and it's not going to get better before hopefully we all go down this road, one road or another, to mitigating this. A very big concern, people of my generation might look at it as, well, how long am I going to be in this house? Maybe I'll feel I need to sell within 5 years. So as Noel mentioned, it enhances the resale value. In the early years, essentially you're getting 100% of your investment back in terms of the sale price. I personally know a guy who put solar on 3 of his houses over about a 5 or 6 year period. He moved from one house to another house and then he moved out of state, I think, to North Carolina, and he put solar on every one of them. And I think one thing to think about, for people of my generation is if you sell your house without solar to a young family, are they in any position to put solar on it? The answer is going to be no. Are they in position to pay an additional $15,000, $20,000 for a house and roll it into a 30-year mortgage? That answer is very possibly yes, including the fact that the mortgage companies understand that their utility bills are going to be minuscule. And so that actually helps the case for a slightly higher home purchase price. All right, so now that bump up of 100% has a lifespan. So just as, if you're 15 years into the solar panels, that bump up is going to start to decline. You've already made your money back. But whoever's buying it is recognizing that, at 25 years, they're generating 85% of that capacity, right? Okay. Small businesses, investment tax write-off. So you can depreciate, rapid depreciation of the solar system. If you have a commercial PECO account, the availability of the tax credits are going to go on for another 18 months plus. By the way, that is also true of municipalities and school districts. Anyone that has a commercial, the account with PECO that would be considered a commercial project, those tax credits are going to last a little bit longer.
Peter, we have a question, if you don't mind. Keith Parson, he has his hand raised. Keith, do you want to unmute yourself? You can ask your question.
Yeah, sure. Hey, Peter, how are you?
Good.
And a few of the other people I know on the call. Thanks for doing this, Solarized Delco. it wasn't so much a question. I wanted to share a little factoid from the National Association of Realtors. Can you hear me okay, Peter? Can everyone hear
Yep.
me all right?
Yep.
The National Association of Realtors, they are always doing studies on home buyer trends and what it is that home buyers are looking for as far as features are concerned. And well, this can always change over time, but currently there is a demand amongst home buyers for energy efficiency features in homes, because current home buyers are stressed through inflation and a lot of similar factors. Prices of cars, prices for oil and gas, and everything else. We're just somewhat touching on here. They're finding that energy efficiency and solar are often strong selling points, as well as the ability, if you already have chargers built into your home for electric vehicles, things of that nature. So just really kind of to your previous slide's point, it does help in the resale value of a property. And it seems that those figures or those features are kind of growing only stronger as
Yeah, so
the
people
current
could really have
conditions.
the confidence that they're not taking any undue risk, I think. And I know we oftentimes, with someone about my age that we're talking to, they're raising those questions. So I think it's a really compelling case to just not worry about it. In fact, as you said, it could be an asset to make your resale more appealing.
That's basically the point. Yep.
Government entities, house of worship. So PICO there's been a sea change in the last 3 years at PICO, and they went from 5+ years ago being, I would say, resistant to solar, to now to recognizing that they saw 2-3 years ago the road ahead for all of us, which is that power demand was going to start to rise at a pretty rapid rate due to data centers, and that they were going to be put into the bind that they find themselves in today, which is they can't build their own plants, right? State law says that they're not generators, they're regulated suppliers. But the grid operator is saying, well, we need capacity, and someone's got to pay for that capacity, and the someone is the consumer. So PICO recognized that, and I think they understood that it was in their best interest to promote solar. And so they've done it for both, the $500 residential credit rebate, if you will, and then on the commercial side, 10 cents per kilowatt hour in the first year of production. And so that's a significant incentive. For businesses, for houses of worship, I think the feeling is that it is a plus for them to have solar. And then really, the financial considerations are the same. For the next 2 years, they're going to be better than residential, right? And so all of these things are important. Controlling future costs now with the trajectory of electricity rates, it's even more important. So really, for anyone who wants to go solar and wants our help, it's kind of simple. You need to own the property, get your power bill. We need a scan of it or download a PDF from the PICO website. Think about, do you have the money to invest? Am I going to borrow, or is this, I really can't put anything toward it. I'm going to need a PPA or a lease. Schedule a call. You could do it online. You could email us at solarizedelco@gmail.com. with your contact information and your PICO bill, and we'll set up a one-on-one web meet and answer any questions that you have and any unanswered questions that we need answers to, like age of the roof. By the way, anyone who recently bought a house and might not know the age of the roof today, that information is going to be in your realtor's package. So that information is there, and you should have access to it that way. Outside of Delaware County, there is a Solarize Philly that's actually run by the Philadelphia Energy Authority. And there are also other Solarizes like Solarize Southeast PA. In Southeast PA, we are probably the only one that is still doing it the way we're doing it, which is we're doing one-on-one advice, counsel, assessment for homeowners and business owners and churches and synagogues and what have you. And we're providing them, specific advice on their situation, and the option to go with a vetted supplier and not have to worry about, comparing apples and oranges and getting sales jobs and so forth. Solarize Philly started out doing what we're doing. Essentially, a couple of 3 years ago, they transitioned to referring you to one of their suppliers. Now they do have negotiated pricing also, which is good, but it's not quite the same. You're still dealing with someone who has a little bit more of a sales mindset. Okay. Whereas we don't mind telling anyone that, hey, solar might not be a good fit for you. Right. So that's our motto. The choice is yours, but we try to give you good advice. So I think we can take open it up for questions, but we certainly want to encourage anyone in any community. Well, certainly, I think some of you mentioned on the call today, hey, we have solar. That's great. We would love to for more volunteers to be. We will train people up on how to do these assessments and advise other people. We'd love to have, if there are community workshop opportunities, venues at libraries or township buildings or a house of worship, we would be happy to come in and do a face-to-face with in your community as well. So that's us, and we hope you got some good advice out of this, and we appreciate you coming tonight. And I'm going to pause and see if we have any questions. You could raise your hand. Melissa, you might as well unmute everyone at this point. And if you want to just chime in and talk about your location, that's fine. I did want to show you this is my house on Project Sunroof. And so, remember I said, well, not every house is great for solar. So the vast majority of my roof is carved up into these little spaces, which are really difficult to put a lot of panels on. Whereas, you look at other homes in the community and you could see, like this home right here, you could see has got more than half of the roof area is really, really excellent southern exposure. And so this is a little bit about that. But questions, anyone? If not, we would invite you to reach out to us if you're serious about pursuing it, or even if you're not and you want to understand it better, and we could look at your specific situation and advise you. If anyone, I could take an advanced question to myself. Can we still get solar this year and get the 30% tax credit? It's really too late. So there has been a big rush to get solar in the latter half of this year. And so our installers have their hands full getting everything that was committed installed. And I think really across the board, you're going to see that for most installers. It's in the best of times, our advice was you have to have a commitment by the end of September, a contract, in order to get it turned on by the end of the fiscal year. And that was actually too short a time this year just due to the rush to get things done.
Yeah, hey guys, what does solar or how do home roofing warranties generally work with installing solar? So let's say you have a relatively new roof and you want to go with solar. What effect might that have on your
So
home
on a
roofing
yeah, on
warranty?
a typical shingle roof slanted, the installer has like a 10-year warranty on their install, which includes roof penetration impacts, and yeah, they will guarantee it. And I had a situation. My church went solar, and the installer actually caused a very small leak in the roof of the church with the roof penetrations. And I guess about 3 or 4 years in is when we noticed it. They came out and replaced the roof and they took the panels down. They replaced the roof, and because they recognized it was their installation that caused it, and it was defective, and they replaced the roof and reinstalled it. So anyway, for 10 years, they do guarantee, and if you're going to have a leak from penetration, it'll happen in the first 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, and there's different warranties. So the equipment warranties vary, but for example, the panels themselves have a warranty for output after 25 years. But the install, it's very important to ensure that the installer offers a complete installation warranty of 10 years, because installation related issues should surface within that period of time.
That's right.
I guess I'm primarily wondering, what will it do if you have a roofing warranty and then you put on solar? How does that
Yeah.
impact the warranty that you get from the roofing company?
Well, I can talk to commercial. It's a good question for like if you have a roof warranty on residential, but I know on commercial we did an install, and we used it was a brand new rubber roof and had a 25-year warranty, and the equipment we used for the install for solar basically kept the warranty in place. They didn't penetrate the roof. They put kind of a fabric between the racks and the rubber roof, so it was just sitting on top of it, and it did not void the warranty. So we kind of worked with the installer and the roofer and the warranty to do that. Now on a shingle roof, it's an interesting question. I guess it depends on if the roof penetrations caused the leak. It'd be hard for me to see the roof warranty kicking in and replacing that. That would be on the installer. But if it's not that, then I would think. But I don't know. We haven't come across that situation on a residential slanted asphalt shingle roof. But yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering, maybe in general, does putting solar on void the original roofing warranty, just as a rule of thumb? Like if the roofing is warranted for 10, 20 years, but if you put solar or do any sort of modifications to the roof, the warranty then becomes void. I don't know. And I also wouldn't know that per se if solar is only going on one portion of the roof, would they would they void the entire warranty for for the entire roof? I'm curious a little bit about that.
We have had, there was one case I know of where, well, first of all, a reputable installer will stand behind it if it was their problem. And, so the penetration, roof penetrations needed to mount on a angled asphalt shingle roof, for example, are, so the hardware is warranted. And inspecting the attic, it's going to be relatively obvious that there was a problem associated with the penetrations. We actually had an installer who was called out to look at a roof, and the problem turned out to be the poor flashing by the roofer on the install. And so, it's going to be obvious who is at fault. The roofers, they will talk about 30-year shingles, and so the shingles have some warranty, but that's not really the same as an installation warranty. I don't think any of them are going to warrant the installation for that length of time. So I think the only comfort that you would have is that it's going to be obvious where the problem is, right? And so, generally for shingle, it is, it's things like flashing. And for solar, with, mounting systems installed through the shingles, it's the mounting hardware.
Sure. So I have a few other questions, but I don't want to hog the time. So if some other people wanted to chime in.
Anybody else want to chime in, jump in right now? Otherwise, we could just answer all of Keith's questions.
Going once, going twice.
Sold to Keith.
Yeah, so I think this one is more generally to the concept of electrifying everything, right? There's the growing trend of moving away from fossil fuels towards electrification. And I'm wondering how Solarise Delco sort of advises homeowners. So let's say your gas furnace or boiler is reaching the end of its lifespan, and maybe your HVAC system is also potentially nearing its end, and you're looking towards maybe taking out those systems and going electric, or doing it piece by piece, or maybe integrating electric hot water on demand, or all the various features, heat pumps that you can go with, even maybe solar hot water. If I've heard that solar hot water is really one of the fastest paybacks. So how do you maybe work with home buyers to go through that entire process of not just solar, but trying to aim towards the electrification of a home and transition off of fossils entirely?
We are very pro electrification. I mean, we ask those questions. What's your intent? Is it short term? Is it long term? We actually we're all members of the Haverford Environmental Advisory Committee. And so we actually have a series of webinars and recordings on YouTube. If you look, search for Haverford EAC YouTube, you'll find, more than a dozen recordings, including specifically on heat pump, and another one on electric vehicles. And so we absolutely cannot stop ourselves from encouraging people to electrify. I will say, so I did natural gas to heat pump about 2-3 years ago. And I also tell people that actually requires more forethought an effort to get what you think you want than solar does. And it's, the easiest solution is if you have central air, central heat, an air distribution system. That is an easy drop in, although it's a difficult dealing with HVAC installers, in my experience, and I think it's widely shared experience, that you really have to know what you want, and you really have to start early. Don't wait until your heater fails. And so that's, we can walk anyone who wants to consider those things through it. But it is much more difficult. Like if you have a large house and you have baseboard, steam, or hot water, that's a much more difficult question and a more difficult conversion.
Sure. Okay. I guess then maybe my final question would be is, rather than going with rooftop solar, what if you have maybe a back porch that is just open? Is there the potential, or a carport type of scenario? Is there the potential to forego the roofing? And maybe your roof, needs those retrofits to strengthen the roofing. So you don't really want to go that route. And maybe you're just thinking of trying to shade your back patio or to shade your driveway, and there would be a good fit just per project sunroof to put panels in those locations. And then I guess you're setting up obviously some sort of foundation or structural infrastructure to support the panels. But how often do you have that situation arise, and is it reasonable, is it effective?
Well, we've had people that wanted to put it on garage. In fact, Noel just put some panels on his garage and added panels to his house. If the situation is right, yes. We haven't really had that right situation where there was, a south-facing back porch that could be covered, that provided enough capacity. We've had people ask us about ground mount. So ground mount requires open land, and there are setback requirements most municipalities have, that they won't let you build it all the way out to the property line. And
there's some costs associated with trenching, would come into play to trench the wire back to the meter.
Yes.
But yeah, but it's all feasible. Just bring your ideas and we can talk you through it on any specific scenario of what it looks like. Is it feasible from a location, and then of course try to give you some aspect of what the added costs are for doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I really wish people ask about about solar canopies. They're more expensive than putting it on the roof. I mean, the lowest cost install is putting it on conventional asphalt roof with that's sloped. And these other things are you're able to do it, but there is a bit of a cost associated with that. Although I do think that I'm surprised that no one like Wawa or Sheetz has really, as far as I can see, thought, hey, I'm building a new gas station. I'm going to put a solar roof on that and generate all the power that I need for this store. And I think they're missing an opportunity because particularly for a canopy like that, there's really no significant fire issues associated with solar up in the air like that, with no combustion sources underneath it, like a wood stick house. I would really love to see some of them start doing that. And I'm surprised nobody's selling like a prefabbed solar sheds also. You know, you would think there'd be a market for that.
Yeah, I would agree. The idea comes to mind. I forget the name of it, but they were building in Philadelphia some of the first net zero apartments. I forget the name of the.
I am familiar, yeah.
It was maybe a good decade, 15 years ago or more. But I was taking a tour of it, and they, on their rooftop, the flat rooftops with the decks in Philadelphia, they had installed sort of like a sun cover that was solar panels. I mean, they didn't cover it like a roof would. There was openings, for sun or rain to even get through, but still it provided a bit of a canopy and then the dual benefit of.
Yeah, I wish there was more of that. I wish they would build out some of those net zero developments in places like Haverford. My wife and I have actually been talking about, hey, retirement, and do we want to simplify and not be in a big old house that, fit all our kids when it's just the two of us. And I've done a little bit of research on net zero, and unfortunately, that designer is only into design now. That company's Onion Flats.
Yeah.
And I wish they were, they would do that kind of build out where,
Peter? Yeah, Ray Dalgert again. It's Ray Dalgert. I don't know why. Anyway, does Project Sunroof include commercial buildings such as a Wawa or Sheetz, or just residential?
Well, the tool, I think, it's designed for residential. So when you use the tool, it specifically asks you the question, what's your average monthly spend on electricity? And so it goes up to like $500. So it's roughly well, that's only 85% of my usage. It tops out at about 30 kilowatts. And so, for example, Knowles Church and School, I think the system was 44 kilowatts. So up to a certain, certainly a small business, small building, you can assess it this way, but larger, not so much. There are other publicly available tools. The installers themselves have much more current tools and much more current aerial photography.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, my pleasure. Anybody else have any questions?
Time for the American Revolution. Ken Burns movie. All right. Good night. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody. And feel free to reach out to us if you want some help with your own decision making.
Thanks, everybody. It's a nice presentation.
Thank you.